Conjuration, for the layman unacquainted with its workings, connects the caster's mind with that of the summoned. It is a tenuous link, meant only to lure, hold and dismiss, but in the hands of a master, it can be much stronger. In his underground vault, the master conjurer, Morian Zenus, would summon Daedra to interview them on their native land. I will never forget that vault, not for its look, which was plain and unadorned, but for what you couldn't see. There were scents that lingered long after the summoned creatures had left. Flowers and sulphur, sex and decay, power and madness. They haunt me still to this very day. The mortal realm of Mundus is a mystifying place, built into the universe by an unlikely host of dead gods, and as a result, the mortal plane is a fascinating paradox. It is rational and grounded, with rules and laws, yet simultaneously, magic is rife as the supernatural energies seep into the realm through the sun and the stars. It would be a great injustice to call Mundus mundane, but to any mage who has dabbled in the school of conjuration, it is an appropriate adjective, for there are planes of existence in the Orbis that do not heed the rules of the divines, and chaos reigns supreme. Some of these realms contain endless wonders, and mortals desire to spend their afterlife within them, and there are others full of malevolence and tyranny. Schools of magic like alteration, destruction and restoration, they interfere with the foundational principles of the Mundus. Then there are schools like illusion which interfere with the mortal psyche, but there is only one school with the gall to reach beyond the confines of the mortal plane. This school requires a peculiar kind of geographical knowledge. A master in this school must understand the Orbic Wheel, in other words, the structure of the Elder Scrolls universe. Mundus is the centre of the wheel. The 8 spokes connecting the rim to the centre represent the 8 divines that played a major part in creation. The empty spaces between the spokes are the planes of Oblivion. The emptiness beyond it is the void, and the rim encompasses the realms of Aetherius. The sun, Magnus, was created when the god Magnus fled Mundus to Aetherius, and the stars were formed by the Magnagi who followed him. If you can picture this, congratulations, that's the first step to learning the School of Magic. With this understanding, a master can then call upon the forces that exist outside of the wheel's centre, outside of the mortal realm. Some gods, like the dragon god of time Akatosh, have gone to great lengths to guard Mundus from the chaotic realms of Oblivion. Yet with a simple spell, masters could invite those unpredictable forces in. For obvious reasons, this dangerous school of magicka should be harnessed with the utmost caution. This school is commonly known as Conjuration. Hey guys, it's Drew here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. After spending many years studying the Daedra, this school of conjuration is the one I'm most familiar with. It is a fascinating field of study, and a great deal can be learned about the universe by seeking out the immortal entities that exist beyond our comparably simple plane. But before you start summoning Dromora on a whim to liven up parties or play pranks on your mates, there is a great deal to go over. There's a lot to learn about Conjuration's potential both for good and for bad, and to be sure that we also conjure responsibly, I plan to leave no stone unturned. In this lesson we're going to explore everything there is to know, including the school's documented usages throughout history, as well as how catastrophic misuse could be. Without a doubt, Conjuration is the least accessible school to beginners. After all, you wouldn't want to be that novice conjurer who accidentally inaugurated the apocalypse now, would you? So, Conjuration Magic involves summoning entities from external planes. This usually manifests as the conjuring of Daedric creatures, weapons and armour. Conjuration is all about forging a link between the caster and the subject. By manipulating the energy around them, a conjurer aims to attract sympathetic energies in the form of otherworldly beings. While conjurers, in most cases, tend to summon from the realms and pocket realms of Oblivion, the school can be used for summoning creatures that aren't Daedra. For example, many conjurers will call upon skeletal spectres to aid them, such as bone men and mist men, or even the apparitions we call wraiths. While there is no confirmation, it's likely that these beings are conjured from the Soul Cairn, just as Arvak and Durnavir are. As for Atronachs, they may look nothing like your typical Daedra, lacking the demonic visage of the Dremora, the runty impish appearance of the Scamps, or the bestial features of the Daedroths and the Clanfears. But they are Daedric, and don't be mistaken, because the varieties of Daedra are vast and diverse. Unlike most other Daedra, the Atronachs are not associated with any specific princes. Simply put, there are countless possibilities when conjuring entities from the many planes and pockets of Oblivion. Few of them are predictable, and fewer still are safe to use. This makes conjuration one of the least welcoming schools to study. There is one story which demonstrates this perfectly, a folktale from the time of the Oblivion crisis, and it's called A Tragedy in Black. The Dremora looked on the young boy with disdain. He looked to be no more than 17 or 18, on the cusp of manhood. You have summoned me. Mother says I'm good with spells, someday I'm gonna be a wizard, maybe even archmage. And what would your mother know of magic, boy? She's a wizard, she's an enchanter at the Arcane University. Ah, another dabbler in the mystic arts. I'm certain she's barely mediocre. You shut up, I read the scroll, I get to tell you what to do. The Dremora was silent, compulsion bound his voice. I want to know how to make a magic dress, I need it for her birthday. The Dremora's answer was more silence. You have to tell me, it's in the rules. Freed from the previous compulsion, the Dremora answered, first, you need a soul gem. I happen to have one, and would gladly give it to you for so noble a cause. Really? Why do I need it? With a hidden smile, the Dremora handed over the dull black gem. It is not enough to cast a spell upon an inert object. Magic requires thought, intent, will, and emotion. The soul powers the enchantment. The bigger the soul, the more powerful the enchantment. So how big is the one in this soul gem? Oh, that one is empty. You'll have to fill it. But it can hold the largest of souls easily. Do you know how to do that? No, the young man said sullenly. Let me show you. You cast a spell like this. The tendrils of the soul trap spell spilled from his fingers and surrounded the boy. The young man's eyes went wide. I didn't feel anything, he complained. How about now? The Dremora asked, plunging his talons into the youth's ribcage. His heart beat only once before it was pulled from his chest. Quickly, the Dremora snatched back the black soul gem, just as the youth died. His soul tried to flee, but was trapped by the spell and drawn into the gem. Only black soul gems can hold the souls of men and elves. Your mother obviously never told you never to accept a freely given gift from a summoned Dremora, he said to the corpse. You see, it breaks the conjuration, freeing the summoned from the summoner. Now, let's go find your mother. After all, I have another black soul gem. Naive mortals may be foolishly put at ease by the stipulation that the summoned entity is bound by the obligation to obey, but a conjurer should never underestimate a Daedra's drive to deceive. As immortals, they have nothing to fear when they find themselves on Mundus. The summoner, on the other hand, one slip up and they're doomed. The harsh reality is, even for skilled mages, it is very difficult to foretell the outcome of conjuring, as the school at its core revolves around creating a link with another being, one with its own motivations, temperament, and more often than not, one with no real incentive to aid you. You'd think that bound weapons would be the solution for beginners, but like all conjuration spells, even bound weapons can disobey you. You see, bound weapons are Daedric spirits summoned in the form of weapons. Granted, the fact that they exist in the form of inanimate objects would imply that said Daedra is weak and likely stupid, but they have just as much potential for treachery. Conjuration was initially introduced by the Dureni elves, who took it upon themselves to peer into the cavernous darkness of Oblivion, lighting the path for mages to follow. This took some serious courage, as the experimentation could easily have resulted in a Daedric invasion. All it would take was one misspoken incantation, one loophole in the binding process. Since then, the Imperials and the Bretons have advanced the school significantly. The book titled Origins of Conjuration tells of the school's first usages by the clan Dureni. Non-belligerent Atronachs offered something of a boon to Clan Dureni, acting as protectors and occasionally servants or familiars. Even the naturally mischievous imp was easily coerced into behaving. Unfortunately, despite the Elven's success in discovering this class of magic, dabbling in conjuration was akin to opening Pandora's box. one can always count on the natural curiosity and almost calamitous pomposity of the elves, who swung the door open still farther, a door to the Daedric planes that became impossibly difficult to shut. Late into the First Era, Doreni acolytes first attempted to cajole enthrallment from Greater Daedra. Although the most skillful of conjurers succeeded reasonably against these chaotic agents, some elves were weak, and the portal to Oblivion can now never be completely sealed. Subsequent catastrophic confrontations with Daedric princes turned our lands to turmoil. Thus it falls to every mage in Cyrodiil to actively dissuade traffic with the Greater Daedra in the strongest possible manner. Communion with them is strictly forbidden. We have the Doreni elves to thank for the conjuration spells modern mages get to enjoy. However, while it's hard to blame them for erring, it was their curiosity that weakened the barrier between Mundus and Oblivion. Corvus Doreni, one of the prolific figures in the creation of conjuration spells, documented his efforts in limiting a Daedroth's potential for mischief once summoned. He writes, "The notable success I have had in formulating safe and reliable conjuration spells comes from my system of defining such magics as always having two essential and interlocking components, a summoning incantation and a binding rune. It is the latter part, of course, that protects the conjurer from the entity or item summoned by enthralling it to the summoner. Heretofore, conjuration has been quite a dangerous pursuit, due to the fact that a conjuring wizard had to cast summoning and binding as two separate spells, and if the binding was miscast or cast too slowly, the conjurer might pay for the error with his life. My innovation has been to interweave the magics of summoning and binding, so that they become one spell that manifests both effects simultaneously, thus ensuring that what is summoned is also necessarily bound. The apprentice is urged to apply himself diligently to study of the spells in the accompanying grimoire. Though my methods have rendered conjuration less perilous, it is by no means an art to be attempted lightly or carelessly. The apprentice who does so will only briefly be a burden to his or her master. It's a troubling prospect to imagine the wild west of conjuration, when summoned Daedra could pick apart the poorly thought out terms of their contracts. We saw through the Tragedy in Black how easily it could be done, even with the binding weaved into the spell. Overall, this school of magic seems like it would be a field day for princes like Clavicus Vile, who relishes in deals and pacts and wagers. Imagine you're a mage in the midst of a tense battle. Imagine you're desperately trying to utter the words to a powerful incantation. If you are not extremely meticulous with your wording, you could just bring forth another more powerful enemy. And if you stick to the pre-made spells, you best be savvy to their attempts at trickery. Conjuration is the wild card of the Magicka schools. If you pull it off, finding a powerful Daedra with the right disposition, while simultaneously protecting yourself with the right bindings and limitations, you could just have found the ultimate ally, making you unbeatable in combat. But if you don't pull it off, well, you could watch in horror as the blade of a Daedric greatsword suddenly erupts from your chest as you're stabbed in the back. Or you could be duped into charging the Dramora's empty black soul gem. With great risk comes great reward, and the benefits of having various Daedric servants at your beck and call are hard to beat. You could even have yourself an alien companion for every circumstance. Need a flame? Conjure a flame atronach. Need light? Conjure a will-o'-the-wisp. Need some heavy lifting done? A storm atronach could move that boulder with ease. How about when you're out hunting, or just when you need an ethereal good boy to keep you company? Too easy, mate. Conjure a wolf familiar. Just don't forget that terms and conditions do apply, and you should always read the fine print, because magic, especially conjuration, isn't all fun and games. But there you have it, guys, the origins of conjuration, the nuances of its usage, and its potential for great power and great catastrophe. Please conjure carefully, and if you end up bringing on the Oblivion Crisis 2.0, you don't know Drew the Daedrologist, and I don't know you. Got it? Good. With that said, enjoy my favourite school of magic, just as you hopefully enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I've been Drew, and I'll see you next time.